5, 4,
3, 2, roll tape, track full.
Rob Vaughn, Cathy Crane, and Doug Wright on sports. This is Channel 69 News at 7.
Your life, your world, your news. This is 69 News, live at 5.
Good evening, I'm Rob Vaughn.
And I'm Wendy Davis.
They're the faces that feel like family. And the logo you've come to know. WFMZ-TV is celebrating its 40th anniversary. And what a wild ride it's been for the independent startup on East Rock Road. A station born on a dream and a prayer. WFMZ-TV in Salisbury Township, Pennsylvania, is the product of one man's imagination.
The most remarkable thing, I think, is Dick Dean. I want to tell you, he has built an empire here. He's a really well-rounded man, an amazing man, and I mean, of all of his different capabilities. And the place here is a tribute to his genius.
I think he just sets the tone for the whole company, you know, in terms of the values he has and the work ethic, and knowing the history of our company and how it started with the very basic elements and grew into what it is today.
Dick Dean was born in 1935 in Telford, Pennsylvania. The son of a barber, Dick grew up with a curiosity for the latest technology.
I discovered ham radio as a teenager while I was in high school. I studied for my amateur license, and I had to learn the Morse code, build a small transmitter, and I started to make friends all over the country on Morse code. Then we wanted to improve the situation, so I designed and welded together a 100-foot steel tower in the backyard. It was rather conspicuous, the highest thing in town.
The seeds of a budding passion and promising career had firmly taken root by the time Dick was a young man.
I got a job as an electronic technician at Philco after high school. And later, after marriage to my bride, Joanna, I started to produce radio broadcasts for a church where we served. With that taste of radio production, I began to dream of building an actual station. Of course, I had no money, or experience for that matter. But I did have the challenge.
Soon, that dream started to take shape. Because if Dick had a will, he found a way.
The best compliment I can pay to Dick, and it kind of is reflected in my life, is he was an engineer at heart, and he was an Imagineer at heart. And because he appreciated that in something else, and because he allowed it in somebody else, it kind of inspired you.
Dick managed to scrape together enough money to buy WFMZ Radio, a classical station that would soon expand to include gospel and inspirational music. With a shoestring budget and a small staff, eventually, the radio business proved prosperous.
It was the ideal time to take over an FM station. Up to that point, AM was radio, AM was everything. FM started to come in, and by 1965, 66, 67, More people were buying FM. FM was coming into the automobile automatically in the radio. So it was the growing time for FM.
But Dick didn't stop dreaming. It had also become a passion. He set his eyes on a bigger prize, television. But TV in the Lehigh Valley had a very rocky history.
There had been a number of TV station tries in the area that had failed at that, to that point.
Dick had the radio station going, and he felt the Lord lean on him to say, I want you to start a TV station, Dick. And Dick said, you got to be kidding.
Dick decided, okay, we're going to try it. Even though many had failed, we were going to try WFMZ-TV.
Dick's first hurdle was the Federal Communications Commission. It was against regulations to own a radio and TV station in the same market. So Dick headed to Washington to get a waiver.
He actually left and he said, if someone was foolish enough to attempt another try at a television station in the Lehigh Valley, a commercial station, we might be foolish enough to make an exception to the rules.
A teenage Cathy Crane typed up the application. Dick, with the help of assistant GM and sales manager Dave Henson, turned the focus to constructing a space for the new venture. Sketching out the first images on the back of a restaurant placemat, and figuring out how WFMZ Radio could help WFMZ-TV become a reality.
Dick being unique in having his ham radio background and just a basic understanding of technology, was able to say, well, we can do it differently. We got a tower already for the radio station, and we got a building, so those things we don't have to spend on. So if we just squeeze things in this corner, we can make it work.
At one point, Mr. Dean called me to one side and he said, let's go in the back here. And we went into the record library and he said, this is going to be our TV control room. I go, like, what? We're really going to be a TV station? Yeah, he said, this is all going to go away and this is going to be our control room.
Fitting into the building was one thing. Finding the equipment necessary for a TV station was quite another.
It was a formidable task because we didn't have the money to go buy brand new gear from the manufacturers, that we had to try to acquire used gear. In UHF television in those days when it was analog, the transmitters, antennas were all frequency specific.
Dick located a transmitter across the country that operated on Channel 69's frequency. But when it arrived at the station, it was damaged beyond repair. Thankfully, another Channel 69 transmitter was found in Fredericksburg, Virginia. Dick and the WFMZ crew got to work.
We set a timetable of Thanksgiving Day 1976. Well, we made our target date by the skin of our teeth.
It would take several years for Dick's dream to make it on air. The station's first broadcast, News Pulse, made its debut in 1976.
From the Lehigh Valley, this is News Pulse.
It was utter chaos. Just before they went on the air at Thanksgiving, people were running around like chickens with their heads cut off. But everything came together, and on Thanksgiving evening, we went on the air.
Thanksgiving was chosen because the crew at WFMZ had to defy the odds to get there. No money, no TV experience, but plenty of big dreams. Pulling it off would be a blessing, if not a miracle.
It was a busy, exciting day. We had 3 news people. I was one of them. Dave Noll was the other, and Jeff Worley was the sports guy.
I was weather and anchor at that time. The news was a little rocky that night.
News Pulse went on at 7 p.m. sharp, and then again at 10.
And it was just off the cuff. And just getting I think our excitement really led to a lot of people wondering what we were going to do.
In the first night, everybody looked green. Green in orange. It was really. I went home later that night. My mother said, I said, did you watch the show, Mom? Yes, but how come you were so green?
Back in the early days of the news, I think there was a sense among other organizations in the Valley that we weren't going to stick around that long.
The first newscast would be the start of a long relationship with the Lehigh Valley. Securing staying power would take tenacity and spunk. The earliest WFMZ staffers had both in spades and could find a way to get the job done, no matter the circumstances or the surroundings.
We were all back in this little trailer, and there's only about 4 or 5 desks. Brad's office was in one of the bedrooms. Sports was in the back bedroom.
The controls room, I guess, it was all one room. Like, so you edited, and the editing bays were here, the control room was here, they were directing the show, the studio was here while you were doing your thing. So a lot was going on in a small space.
The antenna for the station, giant thing, was right over the studio where you would do the newscast. And the roof on the initial studio wasn't all that thick. I think it was just tin or something like that. And in the winter, there'd be ice forming on this tower. And, you know, in a thaw, these big chunks would fall down in the middle of the newscast, and people would call in and say, you know, are you guys all right? You hear this thump, 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 you know, right on above you.
Cathy handled the weather, and her weather station was just about over there. And she just had a little, it was just a board, really, with magnetic little doodads on it, like a magnetic snowman. So if it was snowing, the snowman would be there. If it was raining, it had the rain dots. But nothing electronic, you know, like today with the green screens and the computers and all that. That was unheard of.
When there was breaking news, it was rip and read from the teletype. It was a yellow piece of paper. Usually the ink was not that great. You could hardly see it at all.
News gathering was much different in WFMZ's infancy than it is today. The fleet of live trucks and SUVs that's standard today was well in the future.
Back in the 70s, American Motors put out this wonderful little car that looked something like a bubble on wheels. It was called the Pacer. So we had 6 Pacers originally, and each of them came equipped with a flashing orange light on top in case we ever had to get to a news story in a hurry.
Back in the 70s, when Dave Noll was our news director, he was a little impatient. There was one time we were driving in Allentown. We were following this guy. It was going kind of slow, so Dave decided to push it a little bit, turn on the orange light, and get a little close. Well, here, the guy stopped and started coming back to our car, and we're thinking, what? And turns out the guy was an off-duty cop, and he read Dave the Riot Act. We never did that again.
Those Pacers went to the big scrap yard in the sky in the early 80s. But the equipment used by this new batch of intrepid reporters and photographers still had some catching up to do.
I remember when I first started reporting, we had 2-way radios that we would radio back to the station to say, well, I'm done on this location, where do you want me to go next? And they didn't work a lot of times, so we used to go to payphones.
One of my first jobs was to be a cameraman, and at that time, you strapped on a camera, which is called a TK-76, and it weighed about 15 pounds probably. And then the recording mechanism was an entirely separate deck, which had a big strap that you put over your shoulder, and that probably weighed another 20 pounds.
I often joke a lot of times, by the time we got that whole contraption put together, the bad guy was in the paddy wagon, and the paddy wagon was already driving down the street.
And I remember we weren't always welcomed then either, because we were so new. They were accustomed to the newspaper people and the radio people and so forth. But I can remember going in city council and they say, uh-oh, those electronic guys are here. They're very suspicious of us.
While the news department worked to carve out an identity for itself, WFMZ began to expand its portfolio of on-air options.
And that was the uniqueness of the station. At that time, not many stations did as much local programming as we did. You know, in the course of the evening, we might do 3 local shows in addition to the newscasts we had scheduled.
We're going to show you how to take your very own microwave and make it such a great helper to you in the kitchen. So stay tuned for the next half hour for some fantastic recipes, tips on cooking pork, next on Talk of the Town.
Talk of the Town was the first show that we ever did. And we did Talk with Your Doctor then.
For now, I'm Dick Dean. Thanks very much for joining us, and good night, everyone.
I was the original host for the first decade or so, and we would invite 4 different prominent doctors from the area once a month to handle questions from our viewers.
That fish is cooking. Let me get my tongue here. Not my tongue, this tongue.
Before there was Bobby Flay or Emeril Lagasse on the Food Network, there was Chef Tell on WFMZ.
Now, Kirschwasser is 106 proof German cherry brandy. You can use any other brandy too, doesn't make any difference. I use the Kirschwasser, which makes this a beautiful dessert for children's birthday party. You squeeze this thing on, you give it them at 12, they fall asleep at 12:30, you wake them up at 5, they say, what a party. Just kidding.
Chef Tell's career was star-studded. I mean, from the days of him being on Evening Magazine, that's where he started his career, to the Dinah Shore Show, to the Mike Douglas Show. He was a national celebrity.
Chef Tell on economics.
So like this, bang, another 250.
He would say the funniest things. I remember when I met him, he walked into the station. I'm downstairs walking by. I said, "Oh, hi, Chef. I'm Kelly. I edit your show." And he goes, "That must be a privilege." I don't know why, but that's what he said.
With Chef Tell, learning is fun.
Like they say, you hang around me long enough, it's like a college education.
We started discussions about producing a program. Ran the first couple on our station. We had a huge response.
Doing sound for Animal Doctor was always interesting because Cathy and the vets would bring animals onto the show, which would be very unpredictable at times.
Just give it to him, you go, glug, 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 and down it goes.
Whoa, okay, that's interesting. Can they?
It'll be all right.
Oh.
The WFMZ crew learned quickly. Sometimes being live on the air meant dealing with the element of surprise.
Now, this thing's been running around the studio, and we caught it, so there he is. That's a look at Newspulse Late Night Report. Have a good night from Newspulse.
Going back to Allentown, please.
Hello.
Hello.
To Joe to Donna.
Yes.
Joe, do you think Ronald Reagan is a
Okay, and no, I think that we probably don't, sir.
Now I'm how to do it. You ready, Rich? You got it, Rich.
Give it step. Step.
Oh! We need another ball.
Turnover. Turnover.
Let me see the two small. Oh my goodness. That's all right. We can tell you don't play basketball.
As time went on, the list of offerings on the WFMZ slate kept growing.
Hey, good evening and welcome to Cafe International.
Cafe International, which was largely a polka show, but it could be any kind of international music.
Whether it's for staying warm or just enjoyment, there's nothing like a wood fire.
As long as there are cold people on this earth, wood heat will remain on WFMZ.
Donald Barnhouse, formerly with CBS, Don and I did a half-hour series on social issues and political themes called Behind the Headlines.
Cover to Cover, which was like a local PM magazine. It served the Lehigh Valley. David Murphy, who years later I worked with at WPVI in Philadelphia, he was the voice of Cover to Cover.
Welcome back to Lehigh Valley Crossfire.
There was the CNN version of Crossfire, and we came up with our own local version of Crossfire, hosted by none other than former Mayor Joe Dodona. The voice of moderation is what he called himself.
We would come up with an idea and everybody was so supportive, and then we would go out and execute upon that, and through the magic of television, we would put on all these shows.
Sometimes we were successful, sometimes we weren't, but we were always moving forward, producing all types of content.
A fledgling TV station and local programming came at a price.
We always knew that we were on the edge, that, the money coming in was going out as fast as it was coming in. So, we knew that.
It was a financial cliff that Dick was determined not to fall off of.
We would know when payday was sometimes during some of the tough times, because Dick's office was across from where Master Control was, and you could just see him pace.
When times got tough, Dick would often jump on his backhoe and dig behind the station. His way of clearing his head.
Yeah, it was almost like his act of faith that I'm not going to let this get me down, and that was his therapy. He'd just go out there and say, we need more studio space. We didn't have 2 nickels to rub together. We couldn't even have the money to do anything with the studio we had, much less build a new studio.
There's more music and less talk, always on Light and Easy WFMZ.
Dick knew if his dream was to stay alive, he would need to find a new way to pay for it. By that time, WFMZ radio was going strong.
A word of advice from George Kennedy. Lehigh Valley Page, the smart way to stay in touch.
And 2 of his other businesses, Lehigh Valley Page and Lehigh Mobile Telephone, helped pay the bills.
It was popular with doctors, funeral directors, hospitals, Bethlehem Steel, Mack Trucks, Air Products, and thousands of business people. And this literally helped us survive in those early days.
Then came the big idea. New Century Productions. It started with a motorhome modified into mobile control rooms.
And that was really our introduction into larger clients.
Clients like the Philadelphia Phillies and the New York Mets. As the company grew, it acquired a fleet of more technologically advanced trucks that were hired to televise national events like the Super Bowl, the Olympics, and the State of the Union address. Dick's drive to dream up new ways to bigger and better soon became a culture at WFMZ.
Well, I just arrived a few minutes ago, and I was amazed at the amount of activity around here.
In 1979, the station had its first live remote televised event.
Fire balloon out there, there's bands going on.
One of our local efforts was to create a telethon to raise money for the Allentown Parkettes in preparation and training for the Olympics. We didn't have any way to do remotes from our facilities, so this meant we had to dismantle part of our own station and borrow cameras to do the live telethon.
After seeing this, it was only natural that the news department also wanted to take things to the next level. News director Brad Reinhardt spent some time working in Detroit. And when he took the helm of the news department in 1984, he too started finding ways to bring big city coverage to the much smaller Lehigh Valley.
When I was in Detroit, I was there over the 4th of July, and they had some kind of big America celebration going on, and I'd seen how the station had gone to town covering that from every angle and every which way. And so I came back, and here's this thing called Music Fest. I thought, okay, we're going to do it like they do it in Detroit. I don't think we had the capability to be live at that point, but we sent all the reporters out, and we just covered that thing from head to toe.
Reinhardt says it was a shift in the way events in the Lehigh Valley were covered. Finding creative ways to do what larger markets and even the networks do became the new mantra. One of the most notable instances happened on a cold, snowy day in February of 1994.
Good morning, I'm Cathy Crane, and you've been watching Storm Center Update. Our current temperature is 20.
Cathy Crane was doing weather and school closing cut-ins when news hit that Corporate Plaza in Allentown was collapsing into a sinkhole.
Is a story breaking in Allentown. Now, the top story this morning, along with the snow, is Allentown's newest building in fear of collapse. Nancy Wortine standing by live with an update on the Corporate Plaza building near 7th and Hamilton Streets. Nancy.
A major sinkhole has opened up along 7th Street, and it has rocked the very foundation of the Corporate Plaza. There are windows coming down. In this particular situation, some of the rescue workers were surprised when a window did actually come down as they were standing in the area.
Rob Vaughn anchored the show that evening from the scene. It was the first time WFMZ anchors left the studio to anchor a complete show from the scene of breaking news.
Take a look. It's a scene you'd expect to see perhaps in a Southern California earthquake zone. A crumbling, leaning building, but it's happening here in downtown Allentown. Good evening, everyone. I'm Rob Vaughn, reporting tonight from Center City, Allentown, near the Center Square Monument, the Soldiers and Sailors Monument.
At that time, it was the most watched event the station ever broadcast. Everyone was glued to the TV to get the latest developments.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There it goes. They said it would take just a few seconds. And now it's gone.
A major news event unfolding from beginning to end, right before the unbelieving eyes of the Lehigh Valley. It would start a long tradition of bringing you the news as it happens. From breaking news,
unbelievable, and the camera survived the blast,
to the daily newscasts.
But first tonight, new testimony in the case of a boy who's accused of murder.
But after a while, it was time for WFMZ to expand its news offerings and its coverage area.
5 was the next step. So we did a half hour at 5, a half hour at 7, and a half hour at 10. And then eventually we moved the 7 to 6. And that was a risky venture because now we were going to be going up against Jim Gardner and the Philadelphia stations at their prime time.
Your news. This is 69 News Berks Edition, live at 5:30.
Berks Edition started July 24th, 1995. Our Berks newsroom was a small office within the Reading Eagle building right off of Court Street.
We were a skeleton crew and we had odd things happen, like the tower wouldn't work because there were too many leaves on the trees. And so there was a lot of us against the world kind of mentality, like we're gonna get this show on the air. Then we became the first show to win an Emmy for the station.
Good morning, I'm Hasiel Cordoba.
And I'm Eve Russo. We'll have those stories and much more in just a moment.
A morning show was also added and grew over time from a half hour to over 4 hours.
We're able to have some fun and let our personalities shine a little bit. Of course, we have to be serious, but we try to mix in some fun elements since we have a 4-hour-long marathon and we want to keep people watching.
They said my name is Eve, and thank you for the extra foam.
All right, so it's one foot in front of the other.
After many wrong turns, I had something my coach could work with.
And our next very talented runway model is Hasiel, and today he's wearing an Armani suit, blue pinstripe Armani suit.
We get to do segments, trivia segments, and different kinds of segments that allow us to bring our personality into it, which is also fun. And that makes it enjoyable, I would say.
Want to be on top?
Hey, Tyra, did you hear that? I have a future in this. Let's do lunch.
Noticias 69, edición en español, comienza ahora.
In 2003, WFMZ debuted Edición en Español, the first Spanish-language newscast in the Lehigh Valley and surrounding region.
Everybody was so excited because we are the pioneers. WFMZ should be very proud because Philadelphia, the Philadelphia DMA didn't have a Spanish newscast.
Llevas el paraguas. Sí, y el abrigo, ¿eh? Porque
everything was from scratch, like from creating the rundown to developing story ideas. Everything was like from zero.
Now, 13 years later, anchors Perla Lopez-Baray, Cathy Cruz, and Roberto Vinces bring WFMZ's Spanish-speaking audience the news, weather, and sports they need.
I have a lot of props. I have boxing gloves. I have a horn called a vuvuzela, which is soccer related, a soccer ball, basketball, football. I have a lot of props, and what I like is that Perla and I, when we're at the desk, we talk sports, and we exchange sometimes the soccer ball. I sometimes had the ball to her, and I know the viewers like that. Something funny is sometimes people don't know my name because they're so accustomed to me with the horn that they just say, hey, it's the guy with the horn.
Next came a news bureau in Easton.
Depending on which way you're coming. It's the last big stop in Pennsylvania, or it's the first thing that you see when you cross that border coming from Jersey. Easton is that jewel that some people see that has to shine. Well, what better way to shine than have your own news station right there in Easton as well.
But while the Bureau is based in Easton, its reach stretches well beyond the city's borders, to the Poconos, across the Delaware River to western New Jersey. In 2006, more than 2 decades after Dick Dean started clearing the area behind the station with his backhoe.
We're very excited about it.
And that happened one hot day in August when the anchor team did just that. But then it was time for the big boys to take over.
We're looking forward to bringing a new look to our viewers.
The dream of a new studio on East Rock Road came to fruition. The set, a far cry from the early days. 2 floors, a circular staircase, pivoting anchor desk, and rear projection monitors. State-of-the-art technology to help the news department tell stories in ways it had never done before.
Now you want to double up?
Oh yeah.
There's also an area that allows for in-studio bands and special guests. But the momentum didn't stop with the studio.
Whoa! Hello.
69 News at Sunrise. Weekend edition starts now.
August 4th, 2012. Another WFMZ first. A Saturday morning show.
We really try to make it very interactive. We've been trying to get a lot of guests in, really kind of thinking outside the box. So that creative aspect, which I didn't have before, has really, I think, put a pep in my step.
2 and 1. Here we go.
The price of Twitter stock.
That pep also pops up in the 4 p.m. newscast, created in October 2014.
So when they said we want this 4 o'clock show to be completely different from the 5, 5:30, and 6, we wanted to have a lot of the same, basically the same vibe as Saturday morning. We think it can work in that time slot on a Monday through Friday. I thought, boy, that's going to be fun.
Today, WFMZ broadcasts 93 half hours of news each week. And who knows what the future will bring.
Their lift really works if it can get you up. Stop the wisecracks. Just get me down. Hey, and another thing, if you had Goodyear written on your belly, it'd look like you belong up there. Oh, you're a riot. A regular riot.
And that should be the babysitter.
Oh, honey, every time we go to Bennett's, it's like starting all over again. You just don't know how much it brings us closer together over a relaxing dinner.
Oh, yes, I do.
Well, I think we should go to Westgate Optical. They've got this really great sale where if you buy 1 pair of glasses at their regular low price, you get the second pair at just 1/2 price.
So you'll get new glasses out of this deal too?
That's right, Dad, and they've got a really great selection.
A deal like that certainly sounds economically feasible.
To help realize his dream of a thriving television station, Dick Dean knew he would have to handpick people who shared his vision.
Well, Barry arrived with 2 huge crutches and a big smile.
Barry Fisher was a student at Lincoln Tech when he came to WFMZ in 1976.
Basically, I was a freelance intern, so if you want to be here, go ahead, and if you don't, that's fine.
Dick was impressed with Barry's determination and work ethic. After graduation, Barry became Director of Engineering. In 1984, he added Operations Manager to his duties. And in 1997, Dick asked Barry to take the helm as President and GM. Under Barry's leadership, WFMZ has grown into the family-minded community asset it is today.
He's dedicated, he is forthright, and he's just a great asset in his own very humble way. And it's obvious the time I spend with him, which now as being chair is a lot, that he absolutely loves, has a great passion for what he does, and that is making this station, WFMZ, the best it can possibly be, and the growth has been phenomenal.
The guy must be here 24 hours, 7 days a week. I always say this, I couldn't do half of what he does. And any time that I think that I'm overworked or stressed, I always look to him and say, if he's doing twice as much as me, so suck it up.
When I first interviewed here with Barry, I kind of felt like I was chatting with my dad, like he was a fatherly figure to me. He's just so caring and supportive, like my own father.
Hey, Rob. How's it going over there?
On the news side of things, you'll find Brad Reinhardt. After graduating from Brown University, Brad came to WFMZ in 1980 as an intern.
I remember they gave me a form to apply for the internship, and it asked to check off, are you interested in news, production, or sales? I think were the three options. And, I had no clue really what any of that meant, and I thought, well, I'd like to be a producer, so I checked off production, and that little check mark charted the whole course of my career for the next 4 years, basically.
Soon, Brad became a director and went on to produce programs like the news magazine Cover to Cover. As news director, Brad's vision had elevated Lehigh Valley news coverage, making 69 News a household name and a valued community resource. But it's Brad's news philosophy and management style that are the reason why, in the transitory television news business, many of his employees have chosen to make their home at WFMZ.
Brad has always been the type of person that when I would go out on a story, I know that there's a chance that when I get back, he's going to say to me, okay, but did you think about interviewing this person, and did you make that phone call, and did you look at the other side of it, and did you make sure that this is accurate? He takes his job very seriously, as he should, as to wanting to be fair and wanting us to be the voice of the people of the Lehigh Valley in an unbiased way, and make sure everybody gets a fair shake. And that's definitely his driving force.
That force needed funding to be fulfilled. Advertising sales at WFMZ date back to the radio days. But it wasn't until the late 1980s that the sales team hit its stride, thanks to sales manager Ken Art.
When you take a look at the sales staff itself and the structure, a lot of it is still what my father had implemented a long time when he came on board.
Advertising has come a long way in the last few decades, and Ken wanted to use the latest tools to make sure the station was successful. He found a way in the early 1990s.
He insisted that we get Nielsen ratings, and I think to everybody's surprise, when we saw the ratings that our news was beating the Philadelphia stations here in the Lehigh Valley, I thought I was reading the book wrong. We were stunned. And slowly we would get these larger accounts on the station, and with that we were able to hire more people and improve the news department.
Ken passed away in 2005. His son Kevin stepped into his father's role as sales manager.
My father and I were more like friends than we were, father and son, and I learned a lot from him.
Good evening, I'm Diane Bakes.
Good evening, I'm Nancy Bestman.
Good afternoon, I'm Liz Kepner. 69 News at Noon starts now.
There have been a lot of friendly faces on the news desk, but only a handful have become a mainstay of television news in the Lehigh Valley. Starting with Cathy Crane.
I always wanted to be a broadcaster. I practiced with my mom's Vaughn mic and was so excited about talking, and that's why my nickname was Chatty Cathy growing up.
Cathy started with WFMZ Radio right out of broadcasting school.
I thought, wow, I can learn how to be a broadcaster and get my first class license all at the same time, and if they don't want me for my voice, I can crawl into their transmitter, and that's exactly what I did.
Cathy, I think, would do whatever you would ask Cathy to do. Whatever you would ask her to. I don't think she climbed the tower. I think that's one of the few things. But I believe had she been asked to climb the tower, I believe she would have done it.
My first job was bookkeeper, payroll, sales, morning announcer, and evening announcer for the classics.
Back then, the audience for the inspirational and easy listening radio station wasn't ready for the sultry pipes it heard over the airwaves.
We got call after call of people complaining. What is this? Not only was it sounded like a hussy voice actually bringing the word to everybody, but a female on radio? How dare you?
After a while, people got to love the voice and the woman it belonged to. And when TV came along, they got to see the young woman behind the voice.
Tomorrow, plenty of sunshine, a little milder with a high of 45.
Cathy started out doing the weather, but there was no green screen or computer technology in those days. So WFMZ made do.
Pop Dean actually made this big, huge box, put it on a big metal pole, and then hooked it up to the ceiling with clamps.
The way that pole was held up was by a turn screw, essentially. So every time she spun it, she didn't realize, but it was actually turning the screw. And one night on the air, she spun it.
And all of a sudden, this crash happened. I thought one of the keg lights fell off and smashed into the floor. And all this stuff on it, you know, the snowman and the rain symbols and all that, were lying there, and Cathy's going, oh my goodness.
They're saying, are you okay? Okay, yeah, I'm okay. And I was down at the bottom. I pushed the cube up as far as I could, read the extended forecast that was being seen, dropped it and said, well, I guess that's it, everything is good. And then walked off because I was bleeding on my leg, on my arm, on everything.
You might say Cathy's ability to roll with the punches is the key to her longevity, a career that has made her a role model for many, and recently earned her a spot in the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences Silver Circle Society.
My father always said that if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. And he was right. Perseverance and consistency put forth in our jobs, our families, our relationships, our work ethics, and of course the love of our special people in our lives and our faith. That leads always to wonderful blessings all the way around.
I used to call her the goddess of the Lehigh Valley because she knew everybody. She was always there. People have an affinity to her. They remember her. They've gone through all these stages of their life with Cathy on the air as the steady and the constant and this warm, friendly face.
Oh, what a sweetheart, you know? I remember first day I walked in the door, I saw her and a little starstruck by Cathy. I said, do you go by Cathy, Ms. Crane? You know, how would you like me to address you? She said, oh, please, just call me Cathy. And I knew right then we were cool.
I think if there was a Jeopardy quiz and somebody said, you know, name something, you know, from WFMZ, I think Cathy's name would probably come up first.
They say the TV camera is like an X-ray machine, and you can see Cathy's heart.
Good evening, I'm Rob Vaughn. Nancy Ward.
In 1987, he was a fresh face just out of seminary school. Dick Dean calls Rob Vaughn a perfectly timed blessing. One that came after anchor Dave Murphy announced he was moving on, just before the station was about to unveil a new on-air look.
That was such a letdown because we had been working all this time to put this great news set together, and now the main anchor was leaving.
Dick found Rob by chance after talking to some friends about his predicament. Rob had done some radio, but had never been on television.
So I came here. I was looking like a radio guy, long shaggy hair and a not trimmed mustache and big dorky glasses.
And we talked about, well, maybe the mustache would have to go. He's kind of a little different looking, but maybe it would work.
And work it did. Over the years, Rob has become beloved not only by WFMZ viewers, but by everyone who works with him.
He's amazing. He's an incredible anchor, somebody I look up to very much. I mean, if you see how he handles situations on the fly and ad-libbing situations, breaking news situations, he's a true professional.
Rob's the grammar guru, I suppose. When I started, he was sending out Rob's writing tips of the week.
Rob became a pro at writing TV news. From the hard stuff to his signature series, Where the Heck Is?
In the rolling hills just west of Hamburg, on Old Route 22, also known as Hex Highway, you'll find Jalapa. On the Mappa Jalapa, you'll find Hex Highway hits Jalapa.
Rob's whimsical musings on the names and origins of 230 towns, townships, and boroughs took him all over Pennsylvania until he retired the series in 2003.
I'm Rob Vaughn of Channel 69 News.
But after more than 25 years at the station, Rob decided it might be time to retire another trademark. That's when the great mustache debate began.
He actually emailed me when he was thinking about taking off his mustache. And I remember he probably asked a lot of people.
I think he's more youthful without the mustache. You know, I mean, he could pull it off for sure. But Rob Vaughn without the mustache is, he's something else.
I know his mustache got its own Facebook page. It was Rob's mustache, so that was going on for a while. His mustache was sharing its views on things.
Did I start that? No.
You know, there would be times where he would ask me, and he would say, you know, Ed, what do you think? You know, without, with. I didn't have the heart to tell him, Rob, you can't really tell that you have a mustache.
That mustache, rest in peace. It was a good mustache.
Mustache or no, Rob has brought his personal brand to the newsroom, helping to make sure the Lehigh Valley gets the news it needs in a fair and accurate way. But one night while on set, WFMZ inadvertently branded Rob Vaughn.
I was looking down like this at my script, and a light blew up. The sound of the light goes off. I didn't know what happened. I didn't know what hit me. Literally, something had hit me.
His hair was on fire. There was a little bit of smoke coming out of the top of his head, and I had to continue reading because he was off camera and I was on camera, and I just had to continue reading while everyone tried to put his hair out.
It's a moment Rob's son Jim also remembers.
And then after the commercial, we noticed Dad wasn't there. It was just his co-anchor. I don't even remember who it was at the time, the co-anchor, but obviously that was very strange. It was in the middle of the newscast, but we didn't find out what had happened until afterwards. We were able to touch base by phone. I thought, wow, that could have been worse.
Jim may have been watching then, but today he's anchoring as part of the news team his father helped to build.
It was kind of strange the first time I saw Jim on the air. You know, I used to bring Jim here at the station when he was 7, 8 years old.
I should warn you, I'm here, so censor your answer if need be.
Wow, he's grown up. He's all grown up. So 27.
Great, all positive things though.
Oh, only positive things. Yeah. 27 years is a long time, you know, and now he's grown up and got a job doing it himself. It's awesome.
For more than 20 years, Jack Zarnecki has been creating his world-famous mushroom cuisine in this restaurant.
Wendy Davis joined WFMZ in 1996 and spent several years reporting for 69 News Berks Edition.
I remember my first story was a famous restaurant in Reading. It was like this world-renowned place, and it was famous for its mushroom dishes, and it was doing its last night on New Year's Eve. And of course, you know, it was like 10 o'clock in the morning on New Year's Eve, so there was nobody there.
But it wouldn't take her long to learn the ins and outs of her new beat. Born in Allentown and raised in Topton, Berks County, Wendy was well acquainted with the 69 News team before ever setting foot in the door.
I was really familiar with Cathy Crane, of course, and then Rob Vaughn. When I was in high school, he was the main anchor, so I was really familiar with them, and it's so funny to be working with them and consider them friends. It's kind of strange, but it was great.
Her first foray into full-time anchoring in 2003 didn't go exactly as planned.
They found out that Liz Kepner was leaving the morning show, so Barry called me up into his office and said, can you help us out just for a few months till we find somebody? Can you do the morning show, go home, sleep, rest, come back and do the early evening shows? About 6 months or so tops till we find somebody, and it wound up being 5 years of doing that. We're in the nail technician room. You guys have got your feet in the tub. So
I was worried coming into this.
One of my favorite moments in the morning show is I got to share Hasiel and Matt's very first pedicure with them.
Now, I'm not a foot person. I don't touch my wife's feet. I don't look at feet. I wear flip-flops and I have really ugly feet. but I don't care. But I'm not into the whole foot thing. I'm telling you right now, they gave you that little mixed drink, champagne type of drink. There's like a hot towel. I'm sitting there just relaxed, and I'm not looking down at my feet, but man, it feels good.
We've really promised you a treat this time. Over my shoulder, our very own reporter, Wendy Davis, is loading into the bungee cage.
One of my first memories with Wendy, I was doing a live shot, I was doing a live weather, and she was a reporter out of our Berks edition. There was an opportunity, she was doing a live shot about a bungee. It was like a ride. You could pay money to do this bungee jump out in Kutztown. And I remember she said she was going to do it for her live shot. And I said, really? Are you sure? And I think that showed me that Wendy Davis was gutsy.
Now, beyond co-anchoring the 69 News Evening Newscast with Rob, Wendy serves as a mentor to the reporting staff.
She has terrific instincts as well in news, and I think that her taking on a leadership role in the newsroom was a really good move.
Wendy brought a sort of almost a happy-go-lucky kind of a feel to it. She has a lot of fun. She enjoys being out there. She enjoys people, and she enjoyed being on the air.
You know what? This is all I ever wanted to do since I was about probably 6 or 7. I wanted to be in TV news.
On a wonderful evening like this, I defy any clouds to appear in the sky. Stare any raindrops to plop in my eye on a wonderful evening like this.
I just adore Ed Hanna. I mean, he is one of the purest spirits I've ever known. Ed is all good, all hopeful.
Ed Hanna is maybe one of my favorite people that I've ever gotten to work with. That man is completely ridiculous, and I love ridiculousness. All the time, he is at 10. He never comes down below that.
Ed is joining us starting tonight for our weather at 5 and 5:30. Ed, welcome aboard.
Well, it's great to be here.
I joined WFMZ in March of 1996. They hired me, I think, for 2 hours a day, Monday through Friday. And the goal was to, if everything worked out, to work it into being a full-time job.
But before Ed Hanna was a weatherman or a song and dance man, he was a retail man.
Ed Hanna and his wife owned this gift shop.
And a lesson learned at that gift shop would shape his future forecasts.
There was a particular day between Thanksgiving and Christmas in the retail business. That's the busiest time of year. And I remember the forecasters, all of them, everybody was calling for 4 to 8 inches of snow. Not only did not one snowflake fall that day, but we didn't have one customer. So what I learned very quickly and early on was if the forecast isn't right on the money, you're going to take some heat over it.
When Ed did go full-time, there was a bit of a learning curve, and some experiments in presentation were more successful than others.
Hey,
Ed, how are ya?
Hey, did we promise you Punxsutawney Phil? It is so good to see you, but
you know, it's chilly, Groundhog's Day. It's very, very chilly. My mom kneeling down in the woods behind a blanket, and I'm on the boardwalk. I'm doing the weather, talking about Groundhog's Day, and she pops up with the groundhog.
Yeah, well, you love the trip. And how do you know about Channel 69?
Oh, it's groundhogs love watching your weather report.
And it was a great little segment. It was very cute, and I had this little conversation with little groundhog. I thought it was a fantastic bit, and I remember I got a lot of feedback. People loved it. But I remember Brad pulled me aside later that day or the next day and said, Ed, you know, this is not Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. This is not a children's show. Let's just knock it off with the puppets.
Da Vinci Science Center earlier today.
Ed's blend of intelligence and humor have helped to make his Weather News and You program at the Da Vinci Science Center a hit with students.
There's probably not 1 week that doesn't go by that someone doesn't stop me and say, hey, you came to my school when I was in 5th grade. And they go on to tell me that made such a tremendous impact in their life.
Hey guys, thank you. Good afternoon. Yeah, temperatures are very pleasant. We're seeing a lot of sunshine for the most part. I owe a lot of my success here to him early on when I got here. He is a great leader. He is a great man. He's a great teacher. Just knows his stuff in and out.
44 cool tonight, 75 degrees, mostly sunny, a little warmer.
But there's still a game in Pottstown every year. The Trojans.
I've been here over 16 years, and so it's just harder than I thought it would be.
Longtime sports director Troy Hine left WFMZ in 2016 to return to his home turf in Texas, ushering in a new era.
I'm stepping into the sports director role, and I couldn't be more excited for it.
Dan Mascaratolo says the commitment to local sports will continue to be a priority for WFMZ, with a renewed emphasis on behind-the-scenes human interest sports stories you won't see anywhere else.
When you think about the Lehigh Valley, I mean, this area loves sports.
The Iron Pigs knew they were gonna have to hit more.
I mentioned the kickoff is 7 o'clock tonight.
Because of the conditions, Marion will not bare its teeth the way it should.
WFMZ's coverage not only took the sports team to big events, but up close and personal with some great sports legends.
The owners had a right to implement.
In summer of 1981, Howard Cosell was in the area. Went out during the cocktail hour and caught him in a somewhat snarky mood, if you will. And me being still kind of the rookie reporter, asked him a couple of questions, and him being the smart aleck that he's known to be, picked up on it right away and really put me in my place.
Does that bother you to see speculation done to a fine ball player like Greg Luzinski? Well, A, I don't think Greg Luzinski is a fine ball player, and B, I don't think anything in life could be less important than whether or not Greg Luzinski is traded.
By the end of that interview, I was sweating, and you could see at the end of this interview, when I finally said, "Thank you, Mr. Cosell, for talking to us," he grabbed my cheek and goes, "Thank you very much."
Be careful of your questions. You've got to know what you're talking about.
The last thing you see on that thing is me rolling my eyes like, whoa.
Howard Cosell is one in a long list of big names that have made an appearance on 69 Sports, including local hero Larry Holmes.
But nevertheless, I'm taking care of my family and doing what I want to do, and this is my last go.
We ended up getting seats on the ring, which I don't think we were supposed to be sitting, but it was basically from here to you, away from the ring. Got to see Larry's last fight, and of course he ended up winning the fight. The first thing I did, I was like, "Well, champ, you won your last fight. How do you feel?" And he broke out in a song. He broke out into James Brown's
I feel good, do, like I knew I would now.
That's how Larry is. So he's a ham, but he's a great fighter and he's a great person.
Bundy came into the studios, drove in a stretched limo, and he came in and he was the nicest guy. You couldn't believe he was a heel, a villain in wrestling. But it was a show. But anyway, when the cameras went on, we went into our sort of routine, and I had a huge afro then, big curly hair, and Bundy was bald. And I turned to him, and it's sort of my best Mean Gene Okerlund impression. I said, "Mr. Bundy," I said, "what's with the hair?" And indignant, he looks at me and he says, "What's with the hair? Look at your hair. You look like a sissy." And he dropped the mic and walked out. And I turned to the camera and said, "Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, King Kong Bundy." And then we cut, and Bundy's standing over there smiling. He looks at me and he says, "How was that? Was that good?" I said, "Perfect."
It was great TV, and in the process, it helped introduce some of the staff to their biggest passions.
We had a golf series called Let's Go Golfing with Rich Lerner. That was sort of my first foray into golf television.
69 Sports presents The Big Ticket. One thing WFMZ's sports team has built its name on is high school football. Every Friday night, the gridiron takes center stage. The Big Ticket is the Lehigh Valley's version of appointment television.
The Big Ticket, every Friday night at 11.
The highlight show started in 1994.
It was crazy, but it was modified craziness. It wasn't really the way it is now because it was only 15 minutes. We only had so many games, so it wasn't really what you see now.
Good evening and welcome to The Big Ticket. I'm Doug Wright along with Jeff Fisher. We've got your ticket to the state playoff.
Sports director Doug Wright, weekend sports anchor Jeff Fisher, and reporter Dave Lesko were the genesis of what Big Ticket is today.
He can't escape Cody Zarinsky's clutch.
A line-driving powerhouse that has grown into a must-watch hour of Friday night TV.
Everybody in Lehigh Valley tunes in on a Friday night to watch Big Ticket. I mean, from Berks County to Lehigh County, Northampton counties, into Bucks County. It doesn't matter where you're at.
A lot of the teams tell us and the coaches tell us they play their game, and then there's a place they go every week, and they get together as a group and they watch the show. And it's just awesome.
That's the sport that everybody kind of gets together around. They really like it. They really like what we do. It's basically the only television station that does the in-depth reporting on high school sports in the region and in the state, I would say.
The Big Ticket crew consists of 16 cameras that travel all over the region.
The easiest way I can describe the Big Ticket is controlled chaos.
There's an electric hum that pulses through the station game night, broken only by the cheers of photographers sharing their highlights with each other, or producers calling out scores from one of more than 55 games covered each show.
Big Ticket is very exciting behind the scenes just because it's very fast paced. You have people running in, throwing down scores for you. There's pages going overhead just saying, hey, we need this game in 2 minutes, and you have an editor yelling at you, it's coming.
Big Ticket is broadcast before a live studio audience of coaches, players, and their families who sit in the tweeters, tweeting about all the night's action. But one question everyone watching wants to know:
who is going to be this week's Triple Hot Play? Find out.
It's the most coveted moment of the night. Each team hoping they get selected.
To the Triple Hots. We've actually got 2 staff picks tonight, and we're going to start.
Look at this catch.
Yes,
this
by Miguel Hernandez.
Catasauqua. That is a catch.
Yes.
Are you kidding me?
It is the gold standard award that any high school football player is aiming to get throughout the season. If you get the Triple Hot Play of the Week, your name's going to be on the website. You're going to have people voting for you. Your play is going to be shown multiple times throughout the week.
This year, a kid from Salisbury made a great catch in the end zone, and I was at the game, and as I was changing ends of the field, 2 players, one water boy, stopped me and said, is that going to be a Triple Hot Play of the Week? And I said, probably.
Along with capturing the greatest plays of the night come the hits. One right after another.
It's almost a badge of honor. We encourage that because that means you were right there, you got the shot.
But we had a guy who got hit 4 times in 5 weeks.
One thing is for sure: as long as there's high school football, WFMZ will be there, watching for the next Triple Hot Play.
All aboard the Berks County Time Train. Going back to 1870, the Berks County Railroad hauled coal below the Blue Mountain Pinnacle. Eventually, it became part of the Reading Railroad, adding passenger service. Later in 1963, it reemerged as the Wanamaker, Kempton, and Southern Railroad, the WKNS, providing tourist rides, still available today at Kempton.
For 40 years now, families have been taking a weekend train ride back through time, thanks to the WKNS.
I'm Mike Reinert on the Berks County Time Train.
To one person in America, opinions mean everything, which is why every weekday, he's now coming to you from New York. Donahue.
He's terrific, if you want my opinion.
Jordan M. Liz Kepner. It's about getting the story right.
Enjoy all your favorite holiday music on FM 100.7 WFMZ.
Chestnuts roasting on an open fire.
Because of the digital transition in 1999, WFMZ found itself with an extra channel to program. The question was, what to do with it?
Channel 69 kind of invented the 24/7 Weather Channel.
I called Ed into my office and said, Ed, what do you think about doing a weather channel?
And I had on a list of paper 17 different reasons why it would be a very good idea.
With that whole process, we really learned a lot as to how to make different pieces of technology work together.
WFMZ spent the next year and a half working with the meteorologists at AccuWeather to develop 15-minute wheels of satellite images, live cameras, and current conditions that would be updated by WFMZ meteorologists.
I spent more time on the phone till 4 or 5 in the morning with folks at AccuWeather than I did with my wife.
The station was going to unveil its creation in February of 2001 and invited AccuWeather President Dr. Joel Myers to fly in for the big announcement. But as the deadline drew closer, so did a big snowstorm.
Pretty soon we realized we need to get this on the air for the big storm. And it was a home run because everybody had this new toy to sit there and look at the real-time weather of this massive storm.
WFMZ's AccuWeather channel was big news in the television industry. The first local weather channel was written up in several trade magazines. And phone calls started pouring in from stations across the country wanting to know how to create one of their own. You're watching the AccuWeather channel, the first regional AccuWeather channel in the nation. These days, you'd be hard-pressed to find a television market that doesn't have a similar channel. But only WFMZ can say they were first.
At Channel 69, they really put a lot of effort into it. You're really in good hands with the AccuWeather channel.
But WFMZ has always made covering severe weather a priority.
The snowstorm came crashing into the Lehigh Valley with 18 inches of snow, high winds, and even thunder and lightning.
Good evening. Rob Vaughn is snowed in tonight. It's being called the blizzard of the century.
In Maiden Creek Township, the storm blew apart several homes and barns. It even dropped a truck right in the middle of a cornfield.
The rolling water consumes everything in its path: cars, trucks, trees, and more.
And good afternoon, everyone. I'm Rob Vaughn. We are back on the air an hour earlier than usual to resume our coverage of Hurricane Sandy and the destructive toll she has taken on the Northeast.
But one thing I do want to show you guys, because we've been talking about how damaging this storm can be.
When severe weather hits, WFMZ staff members are out in the storm, showing you the conditions and warning of potential hazards.
Rob, I'm actually standing in a big black hole right now because I'm in Wyomissing in a parking lot where all the power has gone out.
Now for an update on 78 and other roads in the area, we go to Rick Edwards in the 69 News Traffic Center. Rick.
Thanks, Hasiel. Good afternoon, everyone. Yes, 78 remains closed from the Lebanon County line all the way to Route 100.
There was an ice storm that shut down I-78, so we called PennDOT and said, where can we get on an overpass so that we can shoot, a good shot of this scene, and so I can climb down the side of the road in my high heels and interview the drivers who were stranded there for 24 plus hours.
I had to be the bearer of bad news to some of the drivers, and I told them, just the magnitude of this problem, that it extends for miles, and that some people are in very desperate situations, like we've been mentioning, running out of food, running out of gas.
I have a tremendous amount of respect when I watch the snow coverage, especially now, what the reporters are going through and the dedication that they bring to that, because I know it involves a huge effort on everyone's part.
Speaking of special coverage, twice a year, WFMZ shifts its focus to the political arena for its award-winning Election Central coverage.
Welcome tonight to News Pulse Election Central. The polls, of course, are now closed. Tonight, we'll be keeping track of the races throughout our entire viewing area and show you exactly how the candidates are doing.
WFMZ-TV, the Lehigh Valley's news station, presents Election Central 90 with Rob Vaughn and Janet Vassell.
In the early days of doing the elections, we didn't have the computerization that we have now. We had on paper, sheets of paper for every race in great big fat notebooks, and there would be producers hidden off to the side sliding these big fat notebooks in front of us, and then we'd finish talking about a race, and her producer would get her notebook ready and slide that over, and we'd have to switch notebooks around. It was kind of a mess.
But now, 69 News is on top of all the contests on the ballot. From the local school boards and city council to the White House.
Tonight, Donald Trump, with 42% of precincts in the United States reporting. Well, you see the numbers.
I always really enjoy election night because, especially if it's like a big election, like a presidential election, because, you know, everybody's like all buzzed and, you know, everybody's all excited and, you know, people are running through the newsroom.
And beginning in the year 2000, WFMZ took its election show on the road.
Good evening, Nancy.
Should be fun tonight, huh?
Oh, it's the big night everybody's been waiting for.
Advances in technology made it easier to give viewers a front row seat, while Election Central returned to the national conventions in 2008 and 2012.
The Republican National Convention is finally wrapping up, and right outside the arena, things bustling here in the plaza as well as people.
In 2016, 69 News crews covered every angle of the RNC in Cleveland.
Big story tonight at 5, Donald Trump's speech.
And then again for the DNC down the road in Philadelphia.
After 3 days of speeches and 2 days since her official nomination, Hillary Clinton will finally address the crowds at the Democratic National Convention tonight. Hello, everyone. I'm Rob Vaughn.
And I'm Wendy Davis. We're live right now inside the media.
40 years of delivering the information the Lehigh Valley needs to make an informed decision.
I have a notebook that I have from 1985 or something that has my notes on every election ever since then, and we are always tweaking, improving, thinking about how we can make it better.
WFMZ's tradition of local programming goes well beyond news, sports, and weather.
It's been said that we are what we eat.
Today, the station produces weekly shows on a wide variety of topics.
And in just a moment, we'll be joined by our panel of experts who are here to take your calls and questions. So stay with us.
The longest running special program outside of news is Talk with Your Doctor, sponsored by St. Luke's University Health Network. Each week, host Doug Everhart and a panel of distinguished medical experts focus on medical issues and give viewers insight into prevention and treatment.
So when we do cataract surgery, we remove the cloudy part of the lens.
Silence! All rise! All persons having mass before this court, draw near and give your attention.
American Law Journal started in 1990 with host Christopher Naughton.
This is Law Journal.
Preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States.
So help me God.
And we were on every week for a full hour, taking telephone calls, and really what we were trying to do was just give people legal information if they had a problem with domestic relations or bankruptcy or family law. Personal injury, whatever, we wanted to address those issues. But we also took a look at some of the laws that were just coming down from the Supreme Court, laws that were just being passed in the state of Pennsylvania.
The Supreme Court got this wrong.
For the American Law Journal, I'm Gina Passarella.
Till next Monday night, case closed.
Focusing on local and national economic trends is Business Matters. Host Tony Iannelli is also the president and CEO of the Greater Lehigh Valley Chamber of Commerce.
It's been what I think one of the few shows locally that deals with issues within the valley and all kinds of issues, point, counterpoint, and also one-on-one interviews where we're bringing people who are in leadership positions who are doing great things in the valley so they can describe what their plan is. Let's talk about maybe it's revitalization of Allentown. Maybe it's a particular issue that people are concerned about in the Lehigh Valley.
There are 5 schools nominated for Outstanding Overall Production of a Musical. Our first performance is Sit Down, You're Rockin' the Boat from Whitehall High School's production of Guys and Dolls.
I sailed away on that little boat to heaven, and by some chance found a bottle in my fist.
WFMZ's special programming extends beyond the realm of issue and answer to song and dance. For 16 years, local high school musicals have taken center stage at the State Theater in Easton for the Freddie Awards.
Take the Tony Awards, but adapt it to high school theater and just put a spotlight on the kids,
put a spotlight on their performances, put a spotlight on all of the individual achievements in the arts and theater that come together, and put that into a 3-hour show and just make it the most exciting night for everybody involved's life.
The first Freddy's was a lot humbler than it is now. I'll give you an example of what the very first Freddy's was like. One of the production numbers was a number from one of the school shows of Fiddler on the Roof. And it was 3 girls sweeping, and they were holding handheld mics along with their brooms.
The Musical Awards program was an overnight sensation. Not just among the 1,500 students and parents who eagerly turn out for the yearly event, but also for members of the community who get a glimpse of the aspiring performers of tomorrow. Hosts Ed Hanna and Shelley Brown say each year is a new and exciting experience.
Over the years, it's been enhanced so many ways. I mean, special cameras and handheld cameras and jib cameras and steady cams and things like that.
But there's one show in particular Ed Hanna says he will never forget.
They're back singing on stage, and then they sort of stop singing, and the crowd parts, and I'm standing there holding an umbrella, and there's one piano note.
I'm singing in the rain, just singing in the rain. What a glorious feeling, I'm happy again. I'm laughing at clouds so dark up above. The sun's in my heart and I'm ready for love. I'm singing, just singing in the rain.
That took a lot of courage. As Shelley always says, it's all about the kids.
It was a tragedy that tore families apart.
WFMZ has produced nearly a dozen award-winning documentaries. Among them are the Rhodes Opera House fire, the legacy of a tragedy, chronicling a 1908 fire in Boyertown that paved the way for fire safety laws now in place today.
It was a tragedy that killed 170 people.
January 12, 2010, a violent earthquake rips through the island nation of Haiti.
Aftershocks earthquake in Haiti followed a group of Lehigh Valley residents as they tried to make a difference amongst the rubble. And Boskov, an American story about a local department store magnate, narrated by former Governor Ed Rendell.
There are so many stories that impact the Lehigh Valley, and the documentary unit has the task of trying to expand what you usually get during our newscast and really make a thoughtful half-hour or 1-hour piece where you can explore every angle and really understand the impact of an issue.
The desire to explore is something seen in all the shows and shared by all the journalists at WFMZ.
All right, one more.
WFMZ's syndicated programming has also evolved. A lineup that started with Leave It to Beaver, The Andy Griffith Show, and The Waltons has progressed to a top-rated lineup. Judge Judy, Harry Connick Jr., and Dr. Phil are among some of the hottest shows in syndication today. Whether you want to get the latest medical news with the doctors or want to cook up a delicious meal with Rachel Ray, you can see it all on WFMZ-TV.
Communists, the number 2 party in that country's parliament, conspire to become number 1.
Power in government. Well, you know, we've had some interesting items in the news recently that raised that question.
7 crews were called to the scene. They were able to escape the building just before the roof caved in. The building housed a barber shop and some apartments. Excuse us, Rachel, we're almost done.
I'm Jackie Ferris in Orfield, talking turkey during a tough economy. That story straight ahead.
All right, we're here in the press box. This is a pretty good view. You're right behind home plate, which is nice. I'm not sure it's in the running for the best seat in the house, unless it's rainy. If it's rainy, this vaults up to like the top 3 because we're staying dry, and you get to see as all the people just get soaked and just pelted by the downpour, we can just laugh our heads up here. Well, I mean, hypothetically, we wouldn't actually, I mean, you don't laugh at people when they get soaked, unless it's funny, but it's not, so.
Explore the channel that values being a good neighbor. WFMZ has built its reputation on one simple slogan. The moniker comes from the station's call letters and has been reflected in the programming the station offers.
I think it's partly owing to the fact that we keep families and young viewers in mind even as we write stories, so that we try to not have things that are awfully salacious or, in our newscasts, things that would be inappropriate for a whole family to watch.
But the family-minded zone can also be used to describe what it's like to work at WFMZ.
It's a family atmosphere to work. We get to know our coworkers, and that makes it even more enjoyable to come to work. And hopefully that shows with on the air as well as behind the scenes.
Honestly, I think it goes beyond that. It goes to the point that everybody has the opportunity to get ahead, to whatever degree they decide to get ahead.
You're part of a larger family. And, anytime there's been anything that's happened in my life, the birth of my children, when I had to step away from work for a certain amount of time, it was never a fear that my job wasn't going to be there when I got back. It was flowers on my table with a note that said, take your time. And that's a wonderful, wonderful gift to be given.
Barry actually personally called my husband when I was in the hospital a day or so after surgery and said, we want to let you know we're thinking about Melanie, praying for her, and, her job will be there, as much time as she needs to recover, whatever she needs.
Now, since then, in the last 3 months, there have been 240.
It was great working with all these people over the years. I mean, the relationships, the people I met, and the people I worked with, and anchoring the newscast. It was so much fun, and it was a joy to work here for all those years.
I remember in Master Control working one night after elections, and if a person sees this video clip, he's going to hunt me down because he had a Subway sandwich in the refrigerator, and they left, and Master Control operators never got a chance to eat. And when I was alone in this building, I took that sandwich and I ate it. He came back looking for it, and he went on a rant. I'd love to say his name, but if he sees this clip, he'll know who it was, and that was probably 26 years ago. He'd probably still be pissed. That's family.
It is not like going to work. I look forward to coming in here every day.
Like every family, there are those who stay close to home and those who leave the nest.
We were really a starting ground for a lot of people who went on to other things and other businesses and other broadcast facilities. So it was like watching a family member leave, but with a certain amount of pride.
Many viewers have asked what happened to some of WFMZ's friendly faces who spent time in their living rooms before moving on.
Lee Brock has more in our first look at the forecast. Hi, Lee.
Hi there. This morning was just ugly.
Morning meteorologist Lee Brock, for instance, is now doing weather at WBTV in Charlotte, North Carolina.
20, 30, 100 years from now, a sports encyclopedia might list the greatest heavyweight.
Sports director Rich Lerner is now an anchor at the Golf Channel and recently returned for a Lehigh Lafayette pregame show celebrating the 150th anniversary of Lehigh University.
Of course, one of the big draws of the tour will be the area right across.
Anchor Liz Kepner is training the journalists of tomorrow as the director of the Multimedia Innovation Center at Penn State Lehigh Valley. To see more WFMZ alumni, visit WFMZ.com.
I've heard from numerous people that have gone away that have told me, you don't know how good you've got it at FMZ. The grass isn't always greener.
But no matter where they go, everyone who has spent time working on East Rock Road will always be a part of the WFMZ family. Things have certainly changed over the years. A small startup on East Rock Road, driven by a dream and a prayer, now reaches more than 7.4 million people, with operations in Allentown, Reading, and Easton.
She must testify against Gary Foley.
The station has grown by leaps and bounds, most recently adding state-of-the-art automated control rooms.
We are the one-man band. There's no more. I mean, whereas before, when we were working on the board, we were kind of like octopuses. You know, it was our arms are everywhere, doing this, doing that, yelling this command out to this person or that person. Well, now it's kind of like you yell at yourself.
I can tell you that as that technology changes and progresses, WFMZ will be there.
Another new addition to the WFMZ family came with the rebirth of downtown Allentown.
At the time we realized that we had to create a redundant system. The arena project was also happening, and it was just the perfect timing where we were able to begin talking with the arena folks, the Brooks brothers, about that project and how we could maybe do a television studio there, which would be a showpiece for Allentown.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Eve Russo.
And I'm Hasiel Cordoba. 69 News at Noon starts right now.
WFMZ's PPL Center studio went on the air in 2015 and is now home to the Noon Show.
There's temptations to expand it. Right now we're committed to the noon news, but the evening anchors love to go down there and do special events.
Come on down, bring your coats. You definitely don't need to wear them.
Correct.
83 degrees or 82 degrees according to the Wells Fargo thermostat over there.
We've got so many coats already. We just started collecting them and we can see that we've already filled out this entire box.
WFMZ is also expanding across the new frontier, the internet, eagerly embracing it as a way to reach more viewers to give them the information they need. Whether it's on Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram, Pinterest, or WFMZ.com.
News has to be presented right away. So we've changed the ideology and the way we think about how we deliver the news.
While 69 news crews continue to gather the latest news for your favorite newscast, WFMZ.com is constantly updating information. If you need to know something, WFMZ has an app for that. Whether it's on the Breaking News app, hourly conditions on the weather app, or what your ride home will be on the traffic app, WFMZ keeps you in the know. WFMZ's live app allows viewers to watch newscasts. Each month, viewers watch almost 400,000 minutes of 69 News on the live app, and during severe weather like Hurricane Sandy. It was a reliable lifeline for those without power.
There are certain times when things happen, we like to call breaking news, that we can send out push alerts to people to notify them so that when you get that beep on your phone, you take a look at the phone and we're telling you there's something, hey, really important that just happened, you need to take a look at this.
Who would have thought 40 years ago that WFMZ would grow into the powerhouse it is today? A constant source of news and information that over the last 4 decades not only has been making history in the Lehigh Valley, but also preserving it for generations to come.
I don't hear anybody, Norm, so why don't you take it? WA3KEY, this is W3SON.
Dick Dean will tell you he knew, because he saw it in those he hired to dream with him.
I love to work with people who have no idea what their limitations are, dreamers and visionaries. This teamwork is why our station has survived and expanded these 40 years by God's grace. In spite of impossibilities and a very humble beginning, I owe so many people for their hard work, for their ambition, for their determination not to give up, for the excitement they bring to this. It really has been quite a ride.